My 28 male sister Becky had a daughter, Abby, pre-tween. She didn't want Abby and signed over her parental rights to my other sister, Clara. All Clara needed to do was file the final paperwork for $2,000, but she never did. Therefore, the adoption was never completed legally. Abby's real dad, John, recently just married Becky. When Becky gave birth to Abby, they weren't together and Becky basically told him she wasn't keeping the kid and gave him no say in it. But anyways, they're married now and Abby is around John a lot, and he's now really beside himself with the whole thing. He regrets not fighting for custody and he fully intends to fight now, especially after finding out that the adoption was legally never completed or filed. He has legal grounds to do so. Not saying I agree with it, but at the same time, my sister brought this on herself. She had plenty of time to file the paperwork and just never did. Now Clara is running around in a panic because John made his intentions known. He wants his kid back. He hasn't filed, from my understanding. Therefore, my sister is trying to pull money together to complete the adoption before he can take that route. She asked me specifically for help because I offered years ago to cover the adoption fee because she kept putting it off and she always declined my help. Becky never had John sign the birth certificate. She truly manipulated him to the fullest back then. He wanted his daughter even back then, but she told him no. But Becky has been taking care of Abby a lot lately. Even before she got back with John, she started having Abby over a lot and turned her life around. But she never stepped on Clara's toes because this was no longer her kid, if that makes sense. Becky is showing a lot of strong emotions that suggest that she too regrets giving Abby away. So I think she also regrets it but feels she has no rights here, understandably. Abby is partially non-verbal autistic. From what I've seen, and I'm around a lot, Abby will do everything she can to communicate her desire to see John. He takes her out a lot. He even brought her to Disney. On the other hand, Clara doesn't do much with her. I mean, when Abby is home, she just sits around all day and watches TV while her mom, adoptive, just sits at her computer. I'm not going to help Clara now. I have a family of my own and my own kids to worry about, especially. I look at my kids, and if I had adopted, the fee would be the first thing I'd pay off. Clara says I'm a heartless idiot because I won't help her keep her kid. Not the idiot. I'd stay as far away from this as possible. I highly doubt the $2,000 will help Clara now. John has every right to challenge it, even if she files tomorrow, since he didn't consent to the adoption in the first place. You'd just be throwing that money away, and as you said, you have your own obligations. Agreed. For 8 years, she couldn't be bothered to file the papers, not even when you offered to pay the fee. It does say something about her priorities and commitment. She has been asking for something like this to happen, and now she's shocked that it finally did happen. Grab your popcorn and stay on the sidelines as Clara's self-created crisis plays out. You are the idiot. Has anyone asked Abby about her feelings and wants or needs? And Clara was her mom for 8 years. She's in pure panic mode because she doesn't want to lose her child. The bio parents aren't wrong for wanting visitation, but are wrong, in my opinion, to want custody. And to be honest, putting your opinion into an already messy situation will only make everything more volatile. And John isn't behaving as a parent, but as a fun uncle. Abby wanting to be around him is normal when someone is fun, and it's very easy to be fun when you're not always there. The first time I met my in-laws, they called me Rose. My husband, then boyfriend, told them my name was Rosie, but for some reason they assumed my actual name had to be Rose, and so that is how they first addressed me. I corrected them and said it was actually just Rosie. Father-in-law was like, "Oh, not a nickname?" I said, "No, not a nickname, my legal name." They both made faces, and I was kind of freaked out because while I was asked before what Rosie was a nickname for, nobody outside my 3rd grade teacher made such a big deal over my name. After that, they tried several Rose names to see which one it was. My husband told them repeatedly that my name was nothing but Rosie. Not really sure if they didn't believe us or were hoping I would adopt one of them. I've been called Rosalie, Rosalind, Rosemary, Roseanne, Rosabelle, Rosella, Rosamond, etc. Each time they have been corrected. After calling me Rosie a little while, they returned to calling me Rose. They introduced me to others as Rose and called out my name as Rose. They won't stop. Now that I'm about to be a mom myself, I'm less patient and understanding of this, so I've started to ignore them when they call me Rose. They dislike that. Last time I did it in front of other people my in-laws knew. My husband laughed hard and said his parents' rude behaviour deserved to be ignored. They feel like I'm petty and say Rose sounds more like a grown woman than Rosie does, and why can't I let them call me Rose? I told them that Rose isn't my name, and they were trying to make a point about my name and I didn't like it. They told me at the very least I shouldn't be ignoring them like that in front of others, and it's embarrassing to call me Rosie in front of other adults. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, or you can ramp it up and call them something completely different than their names. You could literally call them Eleanor and Richard. Those sound like grown-up names. Keep embarrassing them. If they get upset, they can deal with it. Also, I'd name my kids something like Jenny or Billy instead of formal versions to make them mad. A high school teacher once called on me using my sister's name. I knew he was talking to me, but I ignored him. He asked me why I wasn't answering. I said, well, that's not my name. If you want my sister's name, she's in Kansas and attending college. If you want me to answer, I respond to my name. He didn't appreciate being called out in front of the class. The teacher never called me by my sister's name again. If they don't want to get ignored, then they simply need to call you by your correct name. That is your name, so they shouldn't be embarrassed. And if they introduce you properly to people, then they wouldn't feel embarrassed to call you by your real name. You aren't the one being petty. They are for refusing to use your name. I'm glad that your husband can see the humor in this and has repeatedly been telling them to use your real name instead of telling you to go with the flow to keep the peace. I'm so fascinated with people who literally just do not care for someone else's name and simply rename them. They disrespect you. I see nothing wrong with returning the favor. Also, not for nothing, but you and your husband should prepare yourselves for when they try to rename your children to a name they prefer, when they're still young enough for it to stick. It's not unheard of, and they seem the type that would. My wife is flying to see family for just 4 quick days this weekend, and the airport is 1 hour away. She returns back and lands at 10:30 a.m. on Independence Day. We have kids, and I want to take them to our town's wet parade and fun activities that morning for the celebration. We didn't make part of last year's celebration, and I was looking forward to this year's. She's asked me to drop her at the airport. Initially, I was all for it, but then learning about her return time, this is when the disagreement began. Our family car is in the shop, but we have a loaner from the dealer. I asked her to think about driving herself so we could celebrate the festivities, and she instantly got mad. That'll cost us hundreds more dollars. Parking is $8 a day. The loaner isn't ours. What if it sells while I'm away? Then they wait. Why can't you support me through this and not be selfish? Who's selfish here? The festivities go all day. I'm only asking for 2 hours. 9 to 3 p.m. is the duration of the festivities, were some of the statements immediately made. She even said, my dad wouldn't hesitate to support his wife. I think her dad would shrug and say, just drive yourself. Am I the idiot because I want to take the kids to our town's 4th of July celebrations and would prefer my wife to drive herself to and from the airport? Not the idiot. Airport pickup and drop-off is a luxury. Either my wife or I offer the others if the stars align just right. Otherwise, we hire a cab. Loaners don't sell while they're being loaned. That's not how that process works. Parking wouldn't be hundreds of dollars. It would be $32. Having said that, you could pick her up at 11, be home by noon, and still attend the festivities for 3 hours, in ideal conditions. Barring any flight delays, traffic jams, or small kids' meltdowns, there are a ton of things that can go wrong, especially with kids in the car. Anyone with children knows that a 2-hour round trip on Google Maps doesn't equate to a 2-hour round trip in reality. It's unreasonable for the wife to make that demand when she can drive herself with much less of an imposition on her time than it would be on his. I agree with every word. OP isn't some deadbeat dad wanting to hang with his buddies on the 4th. He wants to take the kids to a kid-centric event. I'm a mom, and if I were in this situation, I'd tell my husband, have fun, I'll try to join you when I get home. In my honest opinion, the wife is being extremely selfish and not thinking of her kids or her husband. The wife needs to suck it up and drive herself. Don't back down, OP. You're the only one in this situation thinking of the kids. Take them to the parade and have a great time. I, 30 female, have been with Jeff for 12 years now. For the past 6 years, I've desperately wanted to flip houses. I've wanted to do this since I was a kid, but these past 6 years, I really started to get a bit fixated on it. Every single year I bring it up to my partner, and every single year he says, that would be fun, and he will help me search for fixer-uppers, but it's like he goes out of his way entirely to turn me against every single property that I want that's within budget. Then, after a month or two of searching with me, he'll find reasons why it can't happen this year. Last year really sucked. I have all my own money saved. Honestly, it's not like I need him financially or even his approval, but given that this is the love of my life, I do want his approval, you know? So I've just sucked it up and given in to the, well, it probably won't happen this year, but it can be our 5-year plan talks. But again, last year sucked because I found a property that I was absolutely in love with. I wanted it in the worst of ways. It was an old Victorian home with 6 bedrooms, built-in bookshelves and dressers, etc., etc. It was only $6,000. It needed work, obviously. The electricity was bad and the plumbing was bad, but there was no water damage and the roof and beams and frame was solid. I know how to do plumbing, but electricity would have been an issue. That would have been a thing I hired someone to do, and it would have cost a good penny, but the place was only $6,000. I had well over $80,000 saved. I pulled numbers from the surrounding homes and the RSV was roughly $190,000 for the area. I wanted it desperately, and he found a reason for me to not get it, i.e. it's in a bad part of town, so I didn't get it. Well, I stepped away from it all. I got a bit discouraged and just stopped looking, but I went on last week and that property was still listed. Same price. So I told him I was getting it. I want it. He tried telling me it was a bad idea, that there was too much work that needed to be done. I have construction experience, but he only has chef experience. I went and looked at it anyways. I determined that with my connections, dad and uncle who both do construction, another uncle who does foundations, me who does plumbing, it would only run me top dollar of $50,000 to renovate. I signed on the property and closed the same day for cash. He's mad at me for doing it and thinks it's a dumb investment. Edit, we don't have merged finances. It's my money going into the place. I understand house flipping is often looked down on by some people. I'm not doing it as a get-rich-quick thing. The profit would just be a bonus. I truly just love renovating, and it's something I've always wanted to do. If I fail, which I might, I won't cry about it. Not the idiot. Flipping houses is hard work and takes real skill to be able to do it quickly and low cost. His reluctance is probably him knowing he doesn't have the skill nor the interest to spend the next year working on this house just to sell. It is, however, your money and time, so you can do what you like. Don't let a Debbie Downer ruin your dream. Keep on living. You are the idiot. Any property you can buy for $6,000 is not a property you want. Just the value of the land alone should be well above that. It might be there's either some sort of contamination or soil subsidence happening on the lot. Or more likely, it's slated for a future expansion project for the city and is under risk of eminent domain. In my state, nearly all properties in that range are about to lose all or most of their lot to road expansion or wide-range clearance under the comp plan. The only question is when. I guess I have to say everyone's the idiot here with the info given. You have the right to use your money however you see fit. However, your partner is clearly uncomfortable with it, and I suspect that you're leaving out some reasonable objections. Do you two already own your own house? I wouldn't be happy if my partner planned to invest $50,000 into a property while we were stuck in an apartment. I'd be even more upset if that property was in such bad shape that it wasn't sold in a year at only $6,000. Also, what happens if you run into surprise costs or if you can't sell the place after dumping all your savings into it? Will you still be waving the separate expenses banner when you're $20,000 in the hole and it's time to pay rent? It seems like you two should break up over this either way. You're clearly not financially compatible. My son Caden, tween, is becoming quick friends with a new neighborhood boy. Those two have been spending like 10 hours a day together. This boy has 3 other brothers. The youngest is his stepbrother and the oldest has a totally different last name than the dad, boys or stepmom. I've been in their house and there are pictures of the dad and the 3 oldest boys from when they were babies. It's quite clear that the 2 middle boys are the dad's bio kids. The oldest does, but doesn't look like the dad but calls him dad. I didn't want to be nosy, so I asked the dad about it yesterday because I didn't want to say the wrong thing. The dad got quite angry at me and said, "What difference does it make?" I apologized and said it wasn't my business. He was a bit rude about it. I told my husband and he said I was a witch and that I should text him a more proper apology because this might jeopardize our son's relationship with his boy. I totally feel ganged up upon. Edit, the neighbor would have been like 21 when the oldest was born, so obviously he isn't adopted. You are the idiot. I didn't want to be nosy, so yesterday I asked the dad about it. I haven't seen such a contradictory sentence in a while. How on earth did you think asking him whether or not his sons carried his DNA was not being nosy? It is in fact being nosy to make assumptions, ask about a parent's biological relationship with their kids. Hope that helps. Ha ha ha. I saw I'm not nosy and thought, oh yeah, here it comes. I suspect you asked in an intrusive way. I don't think you're close enough that it's any of your business whether there is adultery, adoption, infertility, remarriage, neglect, or a death in the family. I think the father is probably sick and tired of this kind of question by people with false polite motives, and I think your husband is right that it risks your son's friendship. Exactly. I was on the fence because I believe no one is an idiot for being curious. Curiosity is perfectly normal. The fact that he got angry with OP tells me that she didn't inquire in a respectful and non-judgmental way. OP, mind your own business. Apologize for overstepping. I'm worried she'll try to apologize and only use that as an excuse to pry more. Good God, the level of contortion she's doing to justify herself in this story only further confirms the conclusion that you are the idiot. Yes, you are the idiot. But wait, there's more. You're the idiot